but it is time for Shiny Side Out with Dave and Mecky. So I hope you have your tinfoil hat all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Hello, and welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave.
That's him. And Mecky. That's me. On WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on Revolution.radio, where it's more than just radio, so jump in the chat room if you can. I am trying to myself at the moment. And this is show number, Dave?
358.
850 and 3, really? 850 and 300, my God, that's a lot of shows. And we're going to talk about... a whole bunch of strange things, strange materials, secret projects, a whole bunch of stuff, general stuff as well. There's something I found just this week online, my friend. It's a BBC documentary about Jesus. So I'm going to talk about that a bit. It's not going to be at all what you think it is. So just bear with me on that one. It's on air, on the line, and on your smart device. The files are in the computer. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. If you missed Solaris' show, you shouldn't have. I did. Bad me. I was shopping, so I do apologize. She was talking to...
Dwight Lilly.
Oh, really? Oh, man. I'm kicking myself for missing that one. That's
it was
awesome.
really good.
I
listened to the
like me
whole
and you
thing.
miss it, and I do miss it on a regular basis. You listen to the whole thing? That's awesome, dude. That's fantastic. Awesome. Look, it only costs $5, $5.95, I think, a month, right? To access the Freedom Slips archives, the Revolution archives, and you can check out her shows if you missed them. And look, every week she has awesome guests. Every single week. Now we try to get awesome guests. We had a few. I had some really awesome guests, in fact, and Solaris herself has been on our show a couple of times, which is brilliant. But she always has great guests, yeah? So it's really worthwhile tuning in and listening to her and talk to her guests, interact. It's fantastic. She herself is very interesting, and combined with the interesting guests she brings on, it's a dynamite show. Anywho, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. Here in Australia, that's the thing we do. And for me, that's the Darug people, and for my friend Dave,
it's the Dark and Young.
Dark and Young, that's right. And we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. And then it might be a bit strange, and I've been thinking about this, Dave, and people might not fully understand what it is that we're doing here. And so the Aboriginal people, and peoples, I should say, because there are many, many, many Aboriginal peoples, and the many migratory waves that the Aboriginal peoples went through as they as they populated Australia, well before the arrival of any Europeans or Asians or any others. And it goes back, as best as we can tell, at least 80,000 years. 80,000 years, we think, right? Now, that's a long time. Maybe longer. It's hard to tell. Archaeology, in my opinion, is still in its infancy. So is paleontology. Anything where we're looking at the Earth to give us some answers. I think we've got a long way to go. But the point is that a fairly continuous line of peoples has lived in this country, Australia, which is an island continent. It's an old continent. We don't have any high mountain ranges. It's all the mountains that we have are very eroded away, if you will. We've got some active volcanoes, not a lot. So it's a fairly stable and it's a fairly old continental landmass. Yeah, and the Aboriginal peoples have lived here for a very long time indeed. So 200 years ago, give or take, the English arrived. Before that, there were Dutch here. Before that, quite likely we had Egyptians, Chinese, Arab traders, certainly coming through here. So a whole bunch of people went through. But the British, I guess, were the first to colonize Australia in earnest some 200 years ago. 1788 is the official date. But the point is that it's a very short history, 200 years, right? And you compare that to the tens of thousands of years that the Aboriginal peoples have been here, it really is vanishingly small. So it is right, in my opinion, to acknowledge the existence of the culture that existed here prior to the current dominant culture, and pay our respects to the people that They did not destroy the country, the land. They did not destroy the ecology, if you will. They lived in harmony. Okay, they lived in harmony with nature overall. They didn't see themselves, still don't. They don't see themselves apart from nature. They're within nature. They're within. I mean, that's not even nature or culture for them. It's just, well, this is the world and we're in it, right? This is something that the Western mindset regrettably has lost over time. But yeah, so that's why we say this. That's why we acknowledge the traditional custodians, and we do pay our respects to the elders. And it's an elder-based society, meaning the elders have the say. I mean, they have the wisdom, hopefully the experience, right, to guide their people, and that's pretty much how the traditional Aboriginal people still function today. Something we could probably learn from, considering how we treat our people in Australia. So right now, there's a Royal Commission, I think, is going to go on into how we treat our elderly, and all the providers of elderly care are being asked to make statements and then bring forward information and so on and so forth. And only a few out of the many hundreds have so far responded. But the way we treat our elderly, of any race, color, or creed, there's no distinction, is shameful. It's a shameful thing. And I'll do whatever it takes to keep my parents and parents-in-law out of any institution forever, because it just doesn't work. But yeah, look, it's been a crazy week. Some crazy things have happened. The interesting thing for me is that Donald Trump has softened on his wall approach. He still wants a wall, but now he's talking about barriers, and then he talks about barriers, but these barriers are really a wall, he says. So whatever, it's all good. I'm sure the money could be spent better elsewhere, but it's everybody's prerogative how they spend their money.
Meki, the money for the entire wall that they wanted to put in. It's only a 230-kilometre stretch and it was less than 1 day's wages for the government.
Yeah.
It's really not much. In dollars, it sounds huge, and it seems almost unobtainable. Where are you going to get that kind of money from?
Well, they're the government.
They'd make it as printed as much as they wanted for it, right? Is the way that I would probably do it if I was in government. But you can't do that. But did you see what he did to Pelosi, who wanted to use the military aircraft?
Yes, go on.
He said no. Computer says no. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Look at that happen. Hey, tell me, from my friend, how have you been? How's your week been? How you had a talk?
Yeah, I did.
Tell us about that.
Well, I'll just touch on the high temps first. Australia has one of the days, I think it was Thursday, of just gone. Australia had the highest 15 temperatures on the planet. Yeah, that's a lot. It was very hot. I was lucky. I was on the coast and I was above where the high temps were. They were sort of, angled across the continent and down below where I was. And very fortunate too, because. But for those who had to suffer through it, there was some interesting facts from it. So in January, the highest temperature measured in Australia was 56.1. 56. Now, if you're in the US, I've got a little chart here, and it says that is 132.98 Fahrenheit. 132. 56 is pretty hot. That's something else. Now
it's hot, all right. We're talking Dubai. We're talking about the Arabian desert hot. So
that's you may as well just have a magnifying glass on you, right? That's pretty hot.
Yep.
49.1 was the next highest in the grouping of highest for this month so far, and it's not over yet. And that's equivalent to about 120.38 Fahrenheit. And then tied 8, 9, and 10th was three towns that all measured 48 degrees, which was 118.4. Now, that is hot, 56 is even hotter. But what are we in for? And what's still to come? And I think that's a great question. But the tragedy of this is that fruit bats are entirely susceptible to overheating. They only have their wings, like the elephants. The African elephants have ears to be able to dispel the heat. They pump blood through them, and it's, the differential between ambient temperature and their wing temperature. They're able to bring their heat down. Unfortunately, at 42 degrees, fruit bats in the open and in the sun are incapable of being able to cool down. And Australia lost a third of the fruit bat population. A third. Dropped dead, straight out of the trees.
Yeah.
Where they go to sleep during the day. These are harmless fruit bats. Like they're quite cute. You can have them as pets if you're really into that kind of thing. They don't bite you. They don't, drink blood. They're not terrible, and they're rather large too. So they're all in all about the size of a house cat, but with wings.
They're big.
So,
they're big.
But they've got a very, very small body, but they've got really large wings, and yeah. Anyway, so that was just awful. I didn't like that. But on the other side of this news, Mackie's right. Yeah, I went to a conference. It was called Illuminate, not Illuminati. Some people have mispronounced it. It's Illuminate, and it was all about light beings that we are all with the right training and the right approach. We are all light beings, and
I'm not.
I'll just kill anyone that says I am. Yeah. The other one was that there was great talks from people. So there was meditation. There was also the Schumann resonance, the machine that can produce the hertz, and in combination with the human resonance frequencies, which were 400 and something, isn't it? 400 something hertz. We were able to harmonize and ground ourselves at the same time. They even had those, not glass bowls, but they're sound bowls. And this lady did such a tremendous job with, as musical instruments, but took us through a fantastic experience, I have to say. Also, there was paranormal talk about UFOs. There was people presenting themselves maybe for the first time as well at conferences. Max Egan was there, if you know who he is. I know listeners of Rev Radio know who he is. He's been a guest on other people's shows, and he's going to come on our show as well as a part of that. I don't know if all of my chakras have been aligned, and I'm not saying that in too much jest. Because I did go through the processes, but I didn't know that I was necessarily concentrating where I should concentrate and do the things that I should be doing, and I'm not. It's early days for me. So there was also some regressions that took place, and all in all, a tremendous harmony with the presenters, and the audience. The audience participation rate was extremely high, pretty good. Probably more than 60 people were in the audience. So I felt as though the location was great. The ground crew did a great job. The organisers presented, managed to get an amazing set of speakers, and it was all in all tremendous. It'd be a shame if they couldn't do it at the same venue next year. The conference right before they came to this one was at Uluru, and they did a star watch and connected to the Earth there, and that was pretty good. Call me a New Age hippie if you want to. I felt as though this is the thing we should be doing, Mickey, because you just mentioned that they were custodians of the Earth, but they had a connection to the Earth, right? The Aboriginals.
That's what I think. Yes, sir.
They had a connection that we don't have, that we lack. And
We lost.
We've lost.
We had it.
Yes, absolutely. And part of this experience from this conference was to attempt to make some inroads into that understanding about the planet and who we are and who we should be and what we should be doing. So that was tremendous. I spoke about, I was able to connect timelines, déjà vu, and the Mandela effect into a single talk. And I even included mechanical time travel, because déjà vu is, and we did a show on it, right? But just real quick, déjà vu is when you've got a choice of two timelines, usually, and it shows you which one you should be going down. And if you don't make that choice, it's like jumping rails. Well, that's like the nature's way of a future time machine, where it's shown you something in advance, right? Well, if you had a mechanical machine and you could go back in time and change something, then you might be presenting an alternate timeline, but not for everyone. And that's what we've found with the Mandela effect, and that it doesn't affect everyone. I did a hands up, Meki, for everyone in the audience that said, if you remember Nelson Mandela passing away in prison, put your hand up. And it was about 50-50 in the audience.
I know, right? It's one of the crazy ones, that one.
So I tried to explain. I tried to explain to everyone that, despite you not being on the same timeline as us, those who do remember it, you're here, and you're with us, and your path is still alive and well. But how can we have two different histories? But
the thing is this: there's more than two, right?
Oh, there is.
That's really the important thing, because people that remember one thing in their timeline, and then look, okay, so let's just lay the ground rules here. Do people misremember things? Yes, people misremember things.
Yep.
Absolutely, they do, right? And it happens all the time. That's why eyewitnesses are probably the worst witnesses ever. Like, people are horrible witnesses for anything. Having said that, some things are so iconic and so ingrained within you that it becomes almost an automatic or natural memory. And by that I mean is, if I smell a certain thing, Dave, or especially olfactory though, especially smell, right? Or even taste, but definitely smell, I'm transported directly to the time when I first encountered the smell as a child. It could be anything, right? But I'm there. I'm completely immersed in my memory. It's a lot of us, if not all of us, have that experience. And some things, especially from childhood, they just become background memories. Like, they're not really active memories. You don't access them all the time. But if something is out of kilter, it irks you. It itches you. It's like Morpheus' splinter in the mind. And Mandela is one. Another good one is the Berenstain or the Berenstain.
That's
bear.
right.
Which one is it?
Yeah.
Now, for me, that wasn't the thing. Because in Germany, we didn't have either, right? There wasn't a thing for me. But I know that here, people will swear up and down that it was Berenstain, because I remember this one guy saying, "Oh, look, I even wondered how to pronounce it. Should it be Berenstain or should it be Berenstain? Because if you're of Jewish, even German extraction, it's a fairly common Stein just means rock, stein, or stone, means stone, right? And you can pronounce it either Stein or Stein, as the Germans would, or you pronounce it Steen, as the English would probably pronounce it. But that guy said, well, as a child, I was wondering how I should pronounce it. And if it had been Berenstain, then it would have been Berenstain, and there would be no issue as to how to pronounce it.
And there's no memory of having to work out how to pronounce it.
Correct. So there's no, in my mind, there's no real question that these people are remembering something, right? And I would go as far as in saying that they're not misremembering, but there's actually something that happened. Other people, of course, misremember. But look, so it's really interesting, and some people will remember some things, and they will remember other things. And the timelines, to me, it seems they're mixing. It's not two worlds that are colliding. It's many worlds that are colliding, and they're all different, and they're all slightly different memories. And it is the trivial things, again, that convinced me. It was just like the flood myths. It wasn't the similarities that convinced me, Dave, at all. I mean, if it's the same, if it was the difference, it was Noah, it was 40 days, all the animals, blah, 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 whatever, who cares, right?
Metallic spaceship.
Well, yeah, exactly. Everybody survived differently. They weren't all Noah. Some went underground. Some crawled into hollow logs. Others had to, like in Siberia, there's this metal ship that came down and saved them. What? But sometimes it rained fire. It rained water, and they all had different stories. But they all were a flood survival story or catastrophe survival story. So it was the differences, because if it was the same, it would be what we like to call cross-cultural contamination, right? Which this isn't. That's not the thing. This isn't the thing. This is something else, and it's the same with the Mandela effect. It's not cross. It is not. No. It is not misremembered. All of it. Some of it, of course. I mean, I'm sure I can't remember everything. That's normal. But certainly there are things that are just wrong when we come up with them. I remember. I'll tell you one thing. What happened to me? There's these little rice balls. It's a Chinese sweet. It's a rice ball. It's not cooked, it's steamed. It's got coconut on the outside. You just got a filling inside, like red bean or lotus paste or something, right? And I remember them to be slightly bigger than 50-cent coins, like a ball, but slightly bigger than an Australian 50-cent coin. Okay, and I would go every Sunday. I would ride my bike across the bridge and then buy them in this bakery called Maxime's in Chinatown, because that's something I like to do. Until one day, I walked there with my brother, and we were walking past the Maxime's is long gone, but walking past another Chinese bakery, and he goes, "No, should we get some Chinese rice balls?" "Well, you sure, why not?" And I look at them in the window. I say, "Oh my God, they're huge." He goes, "What do you mean?" "Oh, they're gigantic. Look at them." They were rather big, but they were much bigger than a 50-cent piece. He said, "They've always been this size." I said, "No, they're not. They've been much smaller." No, he goes, "No, this is definitely always the size that we've had." And another time, there was a path that led from through the garden. I remember it going left at some point, and now it goes straight. And my brother goes, "No, it's always gone straight." And my wife, though, she also remembered the path going left. And there are other things as well, but those are the things, where you can argue, "Oh, you misremember Mackie, blah blah." But these are strong memories I have, and I'm convinced that I'm right about these things, right? So again, I could be wrong, of course.
The thing that I mentioned was mechanical ability to go back in time. So if a time machine had been made, or an apparatus allowed you just at least a certain amount of time in the past, and you could change something, then the knock-on effect would be probably described by some people who came in contact with it, because memory doesn't affect everyone. And that could be the Mandela effect. This could be the thing, the causality. It could be a temporal paradox. It could be this thing that we're all. It could be the I suppose the instigator of this phenomena. Now, that was one of the talks that I spoke about. The other one was QAnon. So I spoke about QAnon as well. Mickey, I just said that the mechanical way of being able to go back in time may have caused these little pockets or ripples of change, which we see today as the Mandela effect, because they only started from a specific, like 2010, where people started to really notice what was going on. So the other topic that I spoke about was QAnon, which is Q. And I don't mean the delightfully cheeky character from Star Trek. I mean the omnipotent character, that is. I mean the person who's been posting anonymously information which looks like they're an intelligence committee member on initially 4chan and then 8chan and now qmap.pub. And it appears as though this person may even have Q clearance, but they've done something really amazing, and they've started a movement to try to protect Trump from the inside of the government, from the deep state. And we'll only see and know if it's been successful, or maybe Q's already been taken out and this person is just sprouting misinformation now, right? We don't know. But it did, from the grammar and from the contextual, sentiment analysis on the posts and the examples and phrasing, it appears as though there's 3 different kinds of Q. people posting as Q, and that's just the general public who don't know anything. There's the other people who are trying to pretend to be Q, but really get it wrong, and you can tell. And then there's the ones that are dead set, legitimate, the same as the other post, the same grammar, the same speak, and the same perspective that you write about. So I gave an example, Meki, when I worked for a union that protected the council workers from the councils themselves in New South Wales. And the councils would attempt at all costs to sack someone or, not protect them in any way, or their work was unsafe, or whatever, you name it, right? That was the job of the union. Also to negotiate wages and all these things. But without the union there, those people would have easily not had any defense at all. So my point here is that by being in the union, if I'd done a similar activity, I wouldn't, without being in there, I would not have known what the terminology was. I would not have known the way it operated. Say if your boss doesn't know what you actually do for a living, you could post from that perspective your complaint, right? Well, that's the same thing. We're seeing Q, or the Q Anonymous, or QAnon, posting messages from within the intelligence committee about the US government, and in particular the deep state and its attack on Trump and its supporters. And it started around about October 2017. So this is one of the things I've been researching, Mickey. So I think my personal opinion is that it really is truly a person within it. I don't think it's Trump. When I read Trump's tweets, because it's one of the questions that came up, they're not the same. They're not the same at all. I would have to decline it being Trump. It's definitely someone who knows what they're talking about. So it's just something to keep an eye on and see how that pans out. But, there's impeachment written all over the place at the moment. And can he, and this is a race to the button, right? So all these people are racing to slam on top of this button to activate their plan. They want to activate it. So some want to, impeach Trump. Some are attempting to, go to war against Iran. Some are just wanting, life as normal. The drain of the swamp. Can we plug it? Can we plug that hole so we don't all, get sacked? So I think it's describing a pretty reasonable situation within there. And it might be a window into the operation of the US government. It just might.
Or the failing to operate. But yeah, look.
Right. Yeah.
No, look.
I didn't say it was efficient.
No. Look. In fact, the way it's structured, that this actually can shut down. And I've got family members affected directly by the government shutdown because we've got relatives in the States working for the government. And they're put on furlough. Furlough meaning, of course, you're not getting paid. Now, usually they get back pay, but in the meantime, there's still bills to pay, right? This is really the very important. Now, this is the thing. What is the agenda here? Will we see Trump impeached? I would be astounded if we did. He'd be the first president ever in the States, that is, to be impeached. And it's just not a feasible thing. I don't think America is at the point yet where they would impeach a president. I just don't see it. I mean, is it possible? Yes. And if there were an impeachment, then Donald Trump would be the guy to be impeached. He'd be the guy that they would want to impeach, right?
He's got it written all over him, right?
Well, it does, right? I mean, he's not playing ball at all, right? And you're right. He's actually moving away from war with Iran, right? And he's moving away from war with Syria. He's withdrawing people from the Middle East.
And North Korea, for that matter.
And North Korea, for that matter. And in my opinion, that's a good thing, right? He's focusing on the United States of America, which is something that the Americans have always done until until the end of World War II. Prior to World War II, America was always pretty much focused on America, and they were doing okay. America was doing great. Really, they were, right? After World War One, there were some problems, the great financial crisis and so forth. But before the World Wars, and in fact, America joined the fray, right, in World War One. But then they immediately withdrew from the world stage. Not so after World War II. They stayed and tried to play a global cup, which you could argue that didn't really work out too well. But the point is that why can't America focus on itself? Why not? Do they have to send troops everywhere, all over the place? No. It is in the interests of the American elite. And these days, it's not so much even the American elite, right? I mean, that's where it all sort of started, I guess, with the military-industrial complex, right? And recently, I re-listened to Eisenhower's speech, and we now are pretty clear that there's some research has been done. It was actually Eisenhower himself who wrote it. And he wanted to give that speech 2 years prior to the time when he gave it, because it was his farewell speech, right? Yeah, there's evidence that he wanted to give the speech 2 years prior to his to the end of his term, but they wouldn't let him. His advisors or someone, who knows? But it was all his. The speech was completely his. There wasn't some ghostwriter. It was all very much himself trying to warn the American public of the powers that would be abused, and which we can clearly see that's exactly what's happened. And no, impeachment, in my opinion, unlikely. If it were to happen, though, then Donald Trump would be the guy to get it, simply because he's not a Washington insider. He just isn't. He's not even close. There are a few other things that happened.
Do you think they showed him the other briefcase?
I don't know. Has he seen the Book of Secrets? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The thing is this, the levels of clearance, they don't stop with the president. You have to think of the president as a temporary necessity within the established order in America. In fact, there are several levels of clearance
above him.
Above him. And it is the bureaucrats that hold the power. If you were a director of the CIA, if you worked in a high office in the Pentagon, if you worked in the military industrial complex in some senior capacity, you would probably be privy to more secret knowledge than any president, with the exception, I would say, of the Bushes. Certainly Bush Senior, who was in fact the director of the CIA,
That's right.
who was vice president under Reagan. He's been on the Hill. Well, he was, or I should say, he's no longer with us, but he was on the Hill for decades, 40, 50, 60 years on the Hill, right? And he was part of the establishment. True, died in the war. If you look where the money came from, if you look at the family ties, you can see what kind of connection or what kind of connections the Bush family has still and had then.
You saw during his funeral that note they passed between each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the frightened reaction, like he was holding back the flood, he was holding back the suggestion of any kind of investigation. Maybe he was the one holding the wall back, or holding it upright.
Maybe
we don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised. He especially as director of the CIA, but not even his reach and his involvement in everything, especially the deep government, the secret government, whatever you call it, was immense. So if there was, and he was probably the best connected guy in Washington, I'd say, right, by far. You should look at who he hung out with after his presidency, right? He hung out with Clinton, and he hung out with his son. They went on speaking engagements together, right? Did you know that Clinton actually converted not Clinton, Blair converted to Catholicism as soon as his prime ministership up? Because you can't have a Catholic as prime minister. It just doesn't happen, right?
Separation.
For various reasons.
State, yeah.
Well, no. Because the Church of England separated from the Catholic Church in the most spectacular fashion. So you can't have a Catholic in a high position of power. But he converted immediately, and he prayed together with the Bushes on a regular basis.
Wow.
And so no, it's a thing. It's a thing, right? Interestingly, I know, right? So you look at the people that he hung with, and interesting as well, Barack Obama is not really hanging with anyone of that nature. He's not really hanging out with those guys, right? Donald Trump certainly won't be. I don't see that happening. But you never know. It is just astounding to look at the actual politics that go on and what's happening in the world today, and how much influence these guys are still wielding decades after they've stepped out of office. Maybe more power now than before, because they don't really have to worry about public opinion anymore. They're not going for a vote. I mean, you can do pretty much whatever you want with enough coverage. And when you say, "Oh, that's impossible," well, okay, fine. Then you tell me then where the trillions of dollars go to that we can't account for. If you can tell me that, I'll shut up. Okay, if you tell me, look, that's a lot of money. I don't care who you are and where you live. I don't care if your toilet is made from solid gold. $1 trillion is a lot of money, right? And you can fund an awful lot of things with $1 trillion. And I think we should really understand just what we could do with it. You could buy countries with $1 trillion. Okay, the space program wasn't a fraction of that cost. Okay. I mean, the only thing that comes close is the actual official defense budget for the United States. That's the only thing that comes close to the missing money, right? And you look at what that supports, hundreds of thousands of soldiers, equipment, bases overseas and at home, salaries for non-military personnel in the military, like, secretaries and cleaners and blah, 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 whatever. And then you look how much it costs to go to war in Iraq and in Iran or whatever, right? You look at how much that costs per day. And all of a sudden, a cruise missile, one cruise missile costs $1 million, okay? And all of a sudden, everything sort of hopefully clicks into perspective. So there's trillions of dollars we can't account for. Well, it must be some kind of accounting error. Jesus, Lord Almighty, excuse me. But really, that's how we explain an accounting error. Trillions of
That's a slip of a lot of zeros.
It's a slip of a lot of zeros. If you were running a business, right? In fact, look, even a simpler explanation. I used to work at David Jones, which is a department store, right? It's like Harrods or
JC
upmarket. JC Penney's, yeah. And I was working, believe it or not, in the men's underwear department. There's many stories I can tell you. And I used to sell luggage there as well. I used to drive the lift. I was downstairs in the food hall. So I worked in every department, but my home base was men's underwear. Make of that what you will. But my point is, every night, we had to close the register. Okay? Now, that means you have to tally up what you put through the register as sales with the amount of money actually in it. If it didn't tally up, if it was out by... Doesn't matter about how much. If it was out, you had to report it. If it was up by 10 cents, $5,000, $1, whatever, it didn't matter. If it was out, there was a report and there was an investigation. There was going, well, what happened? And then we had to figure out what went wrong. We had to figure it out. We might not be able to figure out that night, but it had to be figured out. Okay, each register. And in my area, there were I think there were 5 or 6 registers in my area selling, all kinds of things, right? Which we had to balance. Okay, so that's just on a very tiny scale. That's how businesses operate. The books have to balance, right? Now, if you come to me and say, the Pentagon has lost trillions of dollars, the books just didn't balance. You got to ask yourself, okay, so who we're going to fire the Pentagon then? We fire everybody in the Pentagon, right? Because clearly they're all incompetent.
That's right.
They have to be. I mean, you don't lose $1 trillion. Now, of course, the money is not lost. That's just stupid, right? I mean, or the counting error or whatever. It's not. That's not what it is. This money is going somewhere, and somebody clearly looked at the books more closely than it should have, and this money missing, da da da. But again, you don't hear anything from it. I mean, 9/11 happened just the day after. Rumsfeld said, "Oh, we lost $1 trillion." Wow.
Day before.
That was September 10. September 11, the two towers. Towers fall. Not saying that the towers fell to cover up the loss of $1 trillion. Even though if you think about it, that
that sounds plausible. Yeah,
it sounds pretty because it's $1 trillion. but get the public's eye of that particular thing and do something else, right? And
So
for
even if
next
the
few years-
towers cost $1 billion to rebuild,
yeah,
yeah,
you're still
you're
winning.
still ahead. So Mackie.
But the thing is this.
Wait.
Yeah,
Imagine if someone in the Pentagon was just embezzling the money. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't hide that much money. At some point, you would have bought all the the islands on the planet, and you would just leave. Hey, look, the problem stopped. Whatever it was. Right?
It's actually insane if you think about it. I mean, the amount of money we're talking about it's almost incomprehensible. It's almost incomprehensible. A trillion, or no, it's not even a trillion. Several $1 trillion we're talking here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just beyond comprehension. I mean, nobody, I don't think, that was listening here, if we gave them $1 trillion, would fully comprehend what they could do with it. I don't think anybody would be fully clued in as to what they could now actually do with that kind of money. Right? Forget all the stuff you can buy. Right? You now have to think in terms of power, pure raw power. Right? $1 trillion.
You could buy all the stock in the stock market.
Yep.
Sell it.
Yep.
And then buy it back for 1/100th of the cost, because you would have you crippled the planet.
Yeah, and another thing, there's nothing you couldn't buy, including people. Everybody, well, virtually everybody has a price. Virtually everybody has a price. Okay, I'm not saying everybody, because they are the rare exceptions. Those are usually the people that are disposed of, right? They all can't buy them, well, then off you go, right? Don't make no mistake, the powers that be, the elite, they prefer to buy you off, because then you become complicit in their unethical...
They'll do anything else they suggest.
Bingo. But if you don't bend, if you break, right, then you will. They will break you, they will kill you, they will dispose of you, right? But yeah, I mean, $1 trillion is you're now in the possession of raw, godlike power. That's what you have. Raw, godlike power. You now are no longer a normal human being, right? You now have powers well beyond anybody else. In fact, you could fund, and probably successfully so, immortality research, yeah, for yourself if they don't give it to you, right? As part of the elite, you could do that. Not an issue. It wouldn't even cost you $1 trillion.
You could buy telomeres. That's right.
Boom. Right there.
Telomerase.
So, but look, we're coming slightly off topic. I think it is just a thing that me a little, and when we talk about these things and the power and what's going to happen, Donald Trump is going to be impeached, he's not going to be impeached. Well, if he is a Russian spy, I can't believe. I mean, hey, this crazy world, anything is possible, right? I don't think he is, but hey, maybe he is. Good luck to Russia for placing such a high-profile spy.
If he's a spy, then Obama was an alien, right? And his wife was a transvestite. Yeah. Why not?
Well, so
I'm just saying,
he's a Russian spy then.
I said if. So that means he is. You're absolutely right, Mackie. And I wanted just to round out the conference just real quick. I went to the conference. I went there unfocused and disjointed. And I was also unaware that I wasn't clear and transparent and open. And I came back healed, focused, aligned, and peaceful. That's the only way I can describe it. But the best thing was being able to talk to people, like-minded people, about topics that in a normal environment, say your work's lunchroom, you would appear to immediately grow a second head if you were to talk about the same things that I was talking about these people here. Wow, it was really cool. It was fantastic and an amazing experience. I just have to tell you that. One of the friends of the show, James Bartley, was there, and he spoke about the late Dr. Carla Turner. And she was the one who'd had a family of experiences, and she also spoke about that Walmart-sized UFO, if anyone remembers that. And it appears if suddenly dying of every cancer known to man is a thing that someone can do to you, someone who wants to take you out, as have a lot of our guests on Revolution Radio here on Shiny Side Out, a lot of guests have died. And if it's a thing that someone can inflict that upon you, then they took her out. Because they didn't want to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, look, that's always the last. I mean, that's the last resort, I think. But it certainly is well within everybody's grasp. I mean, if you wanted to take someone out, then that's what you do. It's like war is the last step in diplomacy, right? You what? No, it is. It's the official last step in diplomacy.
I think it's
right? Everything else has failed.
I think it's stepped up a bit. I think it's stepped up to second choice. Because you can always do diplomacy after the war, right? I think that's
it's still part of diplomacy. It's just a more forceful argument.
That's right.
Yeah, the gunboat diplomacy. That's what they used to do as well. You heard about that, right? Gunboat diplomacy.
That's right.
It's a thing.
If you're holding a hammer, you hope all the problems you have are nails.
Yeah, the solution is always a hammer, right? If you're a guy with a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. That's what happens. Okay? You have a hammer. That's all you have. All your problems are nails. And once you start opening up your toolkit, and that's again my problem with most things, including the scientific method. Because if everything, if all that you have is the scientific method, you see how I did that? We brought it back to the scientific method. If all you have is the scientific method, everything will look like a measurement problem to you, right?
That's right.
Except it isn't. It isn't, right? There's many more mysteries that go well beyond anything we can meaningfully measure in reality. I like the scientific method. I'm a big fan. It got us very far, right? And in fact, it will get us even further yet. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff.
It just can't measure. That's right. Hey, Mekhi, I learned something really interesting from Max Egan and others, particularly Max Egan. He spoke about Tartaria. You probably know where it is.
Yeah, the Tatars. The Tatars are
that's right.
a Turkic tribe.
Yeah, and the Mongols. The Mongols and their space that they were Tartarian.
Yeah.
And the other thing I learnt was that Aboriginals in Australia spoke an early Hungarian language.
Yeah. So just to put in perspective, what is it? Well, so Hungarian or Magyar, it's same as Finnish, by the way, and Turkish. They're all Central Asian languages. So languages around Mongolia, if you will, Central Asia, around there. All of those people were pushed out into Europe due to some event, we believe, maybe some catastrophe, water shortage, who knows. The Finns first, followed by the Magyars or the Hungarians, and then followed by the Turks. Now, who is to say that some of these peoples from Central Asia weren't pushed south? Why only west, right?
That's right.
So some may very well have been pushed south, and why not into Australia? I mean, Australia is only far from a European perspective. It's far from because we talk about the time when there was no Suez Canal. You had to go around all of Africa, all of South America to get to Australia. You had to. There's no other way, right? I mean, there was no Panama Canal, there was no Suez Canal. So it's very, very far, it's very difficult, it's very hard. But if you're already in Asia, if you're in Indonesia, if you're in Papua New Guinea, it's a hop, skip, and a jump. I mean, on a low tide day, you could probably walk across from Papua New Guinea, right? I mean, well, maybe not walk.
Well, if the sea level was down 30 meters, absolutely.
Yeah, you could walk.
Maybe
back, 16,000 years ago. Yeah, we know that the sea levels were much lower because most of the ice had been locked up on the land in the Ice Age. Yeah, and then something happened some 13, 14,
about 14,
1,000 years ago that released all that water. Yeah, and so something happened, right? And we have speculated here fairly successfully, I think, that it might have been a meteor strike in the Indian Ocean. But the point is that why can't these people that clearly we know, okay, so fact, we know the people came from Central Asia and made it all the way to Finland. All the way to Finland, right? We know that. That's a fact. You can certainly had argued. They made it all the way to Hungary. They're there. They made it all the way to Turkey. They're there. They're actually there. the distance to Australia is a lot shorter than from Central Asia. It is shorter, a shorter distance to go to Australia than it is to go to Northern Europe. Okay, a lot shorter. So to me, it makes perfect sense, Dave, to have people from that area come to Australia or to the Pacific Islands, for that matter, or anywhere, right? We are so trapped in our box. We are so trapped in our thinking that we just can't allow for anything that doesn't align with what we've been told by the experts, Dave. That's our greatest downfall.
That's right.
We can't jump. But look, I think we're coming to the end of the first hour, so please do remember to donate. It is listener funded radio. Nighthawk always likes to remind us to click on the ads for the sponsors on the webpage. Please do. I mean, clearly, if they sponsor Nighthawk and the station, they must be okay. The products must be pretty good. But if you can, listener, if you can fund, some of, I don't know, $1, $10, $5, whatever you're going to do, or become a subscriber to the archives. That also helps. That'd be great, because it is listener funded radio. Dave and I deliver the content for free. Our time is free. All the other hosts deliver their content and time for free. Nobody's making any money off this. The money is just needed to keep the servers running, because electricity ain't free yet, right? They killed Tesla. Oh, I think they killed Tesla, so we don't.
It should be free.
Get free electricity. Right? I know it should be free, right? But yeah, look, if you can donate, please do. It helps a lot. And if you like the content that we deliver, if you like the content of the other shows, delivered by the other hosts, that's awesome. We've been here almost. We're moving into our 8th year. We've almost concluded our 7th full year on the air. How was it? 358 was it? Shows?
That's right.
Like that?
Yep.
That's insane. 358 shows, right? That's seven. Actually, that's probably close to 720 because of a few double shows, a few 4-hour shows. 720 hours worth of content. 720 hours worth of content. Yeah, that's a lot of content, everybody. Right?
I'm sure the ad's playing right now. We'll see you on the other side of the short break. Take care, everyone. Hang in there. We'll see you after.
Was it shows?
That's right. Yep.
That's insane. 358 shows, right? That's seven. Actually, that's probably close to 700.
Welcome back to David Mackey's Shiny Side Out. There we go. Welcome back to David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 a month. It's a cup of coffee. You can do it, and you think about the things that are to your benefit. You can listen from anywhere. You download as an MP3. It's in your own time when you want to do it. I'd like to say hello to everyone all of the new listeners, especially everyone who's in the chat room, and also we're glad you're on board, and we hope to make your journey an easy one. So whether you follow, subscribe, or otherwise, we're here to provide you information, and that's what we do.
Correct. That's all we do. Information, and not truth. There's no truth here, right? There's no truth.
There's no truth, but it's information. And Mackie, one of the things I was doing at the conference was saying, you know, they said, "Oh, what do you talk about?" Well, we do a bunch of show notes, and then we describe not even word for word, but we describe it. And if someone was going to do some research, that'd be a great starting point, because we've collected all the information from everywhere as far as it can come from, and if it's put into a pack, and then that data pack is something that you could use. You could utilize it. If you want to know yourself, you may come up with a different outcome to our belief, and our belief is constantly changing depending on what the information is that's being presented to us. And I think that's the most important point to make, is that we're not fixed. We haven't closed the textbook. You know, we don't have tenure and a grant relying on the fact that something still exists even though it's been proved otherwise. Or something doesn't exist.
I know, but that's the thing, though. Yeah, look, good science is about the ability to change. I mean, in an ideal world, and this is the approach Dave and I take. In an ideal world, you have an idea. There it is. There's an idea, and then you go ahead and hopefully you can, turn that idea into something more substantial and get other people to knock it about and test it and all that. That's good science. It's a good approach to life, in fact, right? But we've moved away from this as a society. We've become dogmatic in our science. In religion, it's I guess unavoidable. Dogmatism, that is, right? But in science, we shouldn't be dogmatic, but we are because we now have something called atheism, right? But atheism has actually gone further than it was intended, in my opinion. So atheism is there's no God, right? God doesn't exist, or God is dead. Either way, right? There's no God, which means there's no higher power, which means there's no metaphysical. The metaphysical is all bogus. There's no metaphysical experience to be had. The only thing that we have is the physical. Right? And that's where it all falls down. Because it is clear to me that we are not just flesh robots. Right? There's some undefinable, some elusive quality that makes life life. I've seen dead people. They're dead. Their bodies, it's dead. The whatever gave it motive power is gone. Whatever made that person, that thing is no longer there. The spark, soul, energy, I don't care what you're going to call it, right? No longer there. The chemical processes have shut down. The electrical processes have shut down. The mechanical processes have shut down, right? In the body. The biology is now no longer working. And if we take the scientists, or the rationalist scientist approach, well, that's because, that's it. All chemical functions have ceased. There's nothing else to it. I believe that we are more than the sum of our parts. We are more than just the biology and chemistry and electricity of our bodies. I really believe that, and we know for a fact as well that our brain is a quantum instrument, if you will. We know this now, right? There are experiments that have been done. So our brain actually exists in the quantum realm. We also know that the double slit experiment is a huge problem for everybody. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we are very short-sighted on, and hopefully this show can help you with that. And hopefully the Revolution Radio Journal can help you with that. And hopefully you get some ideas. See, even if only one person starts thinking a new thought, right, each show, right, then I think we've done our job. Mm-hmm. I'd be happy with it. Just one person thinks a new thought. Oh, this is interesting. And in today's show, we are going to finish out the unknown, or the lesser known UFO crashes around the world. We'll probably probably start with, because I liked it. Let's start with the Howard Moores crash. Then we have the Wilthorpe Beach incident. We mentioned both of them last time. And then we've got the Bolivia crash. And after we finish with those two, we're going to introduce you to some freaky, strange substances that were discovered by science in very recent times. And the reason we're doing this is because, you know, people like, and there was this black goo. Remember, Dave, in the X-Files, the black goo?
Yeah, that's right.
And there was, crazy stuff and all that, we are coming across new things all the time. And it never stops. In fact, if anything, I think we're going to get more and more new stuff all the time, much, much quicker now, right? It's just the way it works. Forget Moore's Law. Moore's Law is out the window. And we're no longer just doubling in knowledge. We're just, I think it's exponential. It's well beyond doubling. It's our knowledge is going to explode. It's going to explode. And there's going to be more strangeness coming our way, right? And in fact, one day, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, we'll walk down the street, and if we were time traveling from today into 50 years into the future, I reckon half the things that go on we wouldn't have a clue about. Like, we wouldn't know what's going on, Dave. Like, we look around and what is that? What's going on here, right? Mm-hmm. So, a swim down the street. Dave, he just messaged me privately, say, "Oh yeah, we're not walking, we're gonna swim down the street." Maybe we are. On a gondola. But yeah, look, let's get cracking. I'll save the Jesus thing until next week because I thought it was interesting. It's about I won't give it away because I get too much hate for the next few days. So I will share it with you next week. So the Bolivia crash, the Howden Moors crash. Let's start there. When we took the 3 crashes. Perhaps one of the most intriguing alleged cases of a crashed UFO, which means unidentified flying object. Doesn't mean spacecraft, doesn't mean time travel machine, doesn't mean dimensional pod. It means unidentified flying object, similar to USOs. Unidentified submerged object. It took place on the evening of March 24, 1997 over the Howden Moors between South Yorkshire and Derbyshire in England. Just after 10 p.m., reports began to come in from the public that there was a low-flying aircraft over the moors. However, these reports would soon turn into ones of bright flashes, loud booming noises, and several plumes of black smoke, rising from somewhere in the woodlands of the open countryside. Several search operations from several different police counties were launched, both on foot and in the air. These would continue throughout the night. The main concern was that a light aircraft or a helicopter had come down. However, no survivors or any wreckage were discovered during the search, which would go on well until the following day, so through the night and into the morning. At one stage, no-fly zones were put in place, an action which some later UFO researchers would find to be suspicious, particularly when there were commercial airliners stacking as a result, which means if you're trying to land a commercial airliner and there's no runway available, they stack them in the air, meaning they're going to be in slightly higher altitudes, so the holding pattern where they don't crash into each other. So that's what they were doing, right? The no-fly zone, caused the stacking. Despite all of this activity, the sudden official word from the UK military was that there was no crash at all, none, zero. It had simply been a mistaken sighting. Swamp gas, I think Dave mentioned last time. Despite the plethora, the virtual cornucopia, which means lots of reports from the general public. Soon, rumors began to circulate from the many volunteer searchers. The most prominent came from a unit of Yorkshire water workers who happened to be in the area. They would claim to have seen a wrecked pile of metal in a clearing. They would also report that there was a military presence there. What's more, this military presence was loading body bags onto a Sea King helicopter. When the military were confronted with this, they claimed they were merely moving equipment. Well, despite the official explanation of mistaken reports, many UFO researchers still consider the crash authentic, and explanation remains elusive. Maybe not despite, but because of the explanation. The official explanation. Dave?
Yeah, so I'm reading out the Bolivia one, right?
And Wiltshire.
I swear I read this last week.
You did.
Oh, okay. So I read it again?
Yes.
Okay. The Willsthorpe Beach incident. A bizarre incident presumed to be a downed UFO occurred in September 2009, although no witnesses actually saw the crash itself. However, the events that would unfold are almost a textbook crash story. An unnamed retired couple in their 70s at the time would witness 30 to 40 strange objects hanging in the air over the North Sea for around about 90 minutes. It was around about 11 p.m. and the married couple were getting ready for bed when they noticed a strange aerial show from the bedroom window of their seafront home. After they watched the UFOs until just after midnight, which is a little bit more than an hour, the strange objects began to shoot straight upward. Not quite sure what they'd seen, the couple believed the show was over and went to bed. However, the next morning they would awake to the sound of heavy-duty military helicopters descending on the beachfront. 2 Chinooks offloaded droves of military personnel. The entire beach was under lockdown. Some of the soldiers were moving up and down the beach in specific ways with metal detectors and as if searching for metallic objects. Then came the sound of bursts of automatic gunfire, quickly followed by explosions. When UFO investigators would request information on the military presence that morning, even asking outright if a UFO had crashed on the beach or in the sea, they were told it was a routine military exercise. One particular UFO researcher, Paul Sinclair, wasn't at all satisfied with the explanation and continues to investigate the case.
Indeed. The Bolivia crash, and Dave is right, we did share the other 2 with you, but for continuity's sake, I'd like to do them again, so eventually we can fledge those shoes together, and this is the touching point. On the mountain range near Bermejo in Bolivia, near the border with Argentina, thousands of people would witness a UFO crash and explosions into flames, or something that exploded into flames. It was just after 4:15 p.m. on May 6, 1978, and according to reports, the supersonic bang was heard up to 240 kilometers, which is about 150 miles away, and even cracked windows within a 48-kilometer radius, which is 30 miles. So there's definitely something physical that happened that caused damage, right? So we're no longer talking just about eyewitness reports, we're talking about physical evidence. While residents on the Bolivian side contemplated whether the object was a meteor or something more otherworldly, well, a meteor is otherworldly. It can't get much more otherworldly than that, to be honest with you. The Argentinian authorities had mobilized the military onto the mountainous border range to search for the mystery object. This search would apparently take weeks. Eventually, the Bolivian Air Force would discover the crash site, but were unable to land to investigate further. The next thing anyone knew, the Argentinian press had announced that the Argentinian Air Force had made the discovery. And what's more, NASA was sending investigators. However, instead of NASA, 2 off-duty U.S. Air Force employees arrived with instructions to transport the craft to the United States. From there, the trail goes, likely purposely, murky, with several versions of where the UFO and any occupants might be. It would appear, though, that something definitely did crash and that the United States government and our military had a great interest in it. And
just remember, they have cleanup crews.
Oh yes, absolutely. And not only that. See, the thing is, there are, well, North and South America are very much the United States playground. So whenever something happens there, they will send their the goon squad in. I guess you can call them the cleanup crew, and make sure that
the spooks
the
turn
goon
up,
squad.
Right?
The spooks. That's right. And look, and that's what happens, right? And before you know it, the great unwashed masses, that's us, by the way, in case you were wondering, are not allowed to know all the stuff. It's just not. How can I put this best?
And
it is just
survive
not
on the drip feed. That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
Any little morsel that fell off the story. Now we're talking about triodide. While triodide itself, this is freaky, strange substances discovered by science.
That's right. Correct.
I forgot to read the headline. While triodide itself refers to one chemical which can be mixed with many others to create different chemicals, triodide, short for triodide ion, isn't inherently very interesting. It's often a yellowish substance that turns red when prepared in such a way to create a nitrogen triodide with the inorganic compound designation of Ni. What makes nitrogen triiodide so special? It's ridiculously explosive. It really is. Most explosives use chemical processes which are quite complex, or heat and combustion, but not nitrogen triiodide, which is explosive on contact. That's right. Take a simple gram or so of this powder, set it on a table, touch it with nearly anything, and watch the show. Actually, don't try this at home. All that's required for it to blow up is simple contact or friction. This material is so unusual due to its volatility that even touching it can cause it to explode. I remember I made touch powder when I was a kid. And I believed that I was making that.
Yeah. And look, again, see, we're making these materials every day, right? This is just the most recent stuff, but there's something like this that in fact, a lot of the stuff we never hear about, right? If it is really interesting and it has really exotic properties, you and I will hear about it when it's commercialized, 20, 30 years down the track.
That's right.
The next one is called Vanta Black. You probably heard about Vanta Black. It's an artificial material that was developed by Survey Nanosystems. Surrey Nanosystems. This coating goes on many things, from paint to carbon objects. It's the material equivalent of a black hole in that it traps all light. It traps light. Okay, so much so that the three-dimensional objects coated with the material appear to be two-dimensional, as the refraction of any light is so heavily reduced. So if you look at anything that is coated in this Vanta Black, it'll appear like a hole in space. Mm-hmm. Right? You can paint an elephant in it. You'll have an elephant-shaped hole. Right? That's what you have.
That's exactly
not a black
what it looks
elephant.
like. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not a black elephant or an elephant that's painted black. You can still make out the elephant, right? All you make out with this stuff is the outline of it, because everything else just sucks up.
It's all that you can see. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, it holds the world record for the darkest artificial substance and the darkest black you can buy. Oh, maybe this is darker black yet that you can't buy. The material absorbs 99% of all light it comes into contact. People even coated a building with it in South Korea to create the darkest place on Earth, in a mimicry of the deepest recesses of space. The goal was to create an experience of being absorbed into blackness, a deep, dark cloud of black. Three-dimensional objects coated in Vanta Black actually look like shadows from the profile view, like we said. Definitely an interesting material, to say the least, right? I mean, imagine special forces having suits or jumpsuits or whatever,
That's
full
right.
body suits in that material. If they're standing still in the night in a tunnel, you never know they're there, right? Even certainly in low light, still can't help you.
I can't help you. I would love that. Imagine if you were in a house that was painted like that. I don't think you'd be able to move anywhere. If every wall and ceiling and everything was blacked out and the windows are painted with the same stuff, you would indeed experience the solemnness of being ejected into space, right, against your will. By a speeding spaceship that was gone away. You would want to take a long deep breath and hold that, because you may think it's your last. All right, ultra hydrophobic material. So what is that? What is ultra hydrophobic? Hydrophobic material isn't the stuff we buy to coat leather and suede products, or the spray coatings that protect our outdoor wood projects, or even your car from the rain or elements. An ultra hydrophobic coating actually causes water to encase itself into tiny spheres that look like gemstones or marbles. It's so water resistant that if you sprayed your old windshield with it, you could drive in the rain up to 64 kilometers per hour, which is about 40 miles an hour, and your windshield would not get wet. And you could just ditch your windshield wipers entirely. In fact, an ultra hydrophobic material repels almost all liquids, not just water, causing them to shrivel up into little balls that you can even roll around as if they're actual marbles. So it plays with the surface tension so much so that you can roll it around like it's a physical solid rather than liquid. This material is genius and has a lot of applications, including for those high-tech industries. It's also ultra weird. I've seen ceramic coatings that you can put on your car, but not this stuff. This is amazing.
Yeah, this is again, it's next level stuff, right? It is next level stuff. And the next one is interesting as well. It's a ferrofluid. Ferrofluids are a type of liquid that can easily be formed into strange shapes without even touching it, right? The material, that is. Often dark, blackish, reddish, or even grayish liquids, ferrofluids act very much like any other liquid when they're outside the presence of a magnetic field. The moment the fluids come into contact with the magnetic field, they become highly magnetized, morphing shapes, bending or pulling. They do everything our usual solid magnets do, only as a liquid state. This stuff looks like a dark liquid metal. It can be purchased online or even made with readily accessible internet instructions. Like so many other wonders of physics, it's truly an amazing sight to see ferrofluids in action as they respond to magnetic fields and fall right in line with them. Then they disperse randomly once the magnetic field is removed. So again,
yep, I've seen them make what looks like the Tower of Babel just with magnetic fields.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, see, this is before we go further, because this also triggers for me at least thought processes. So there are a couple of things we haven't really paid enough attention to as a scientific civilization. One of them is magnetism, and all the power that magnetism brings with it. So magnetism is a freakishly strong force, right? In contrast, gravity is a freakishly weak force.
Imagine if the Earth, if we were attracted to the Earth through magnetism, and with the size of the Earth, we'd all be crushed to a liquid.
Oh, completely. If we were like ferric, or if we had like the ferro components within us, I mean, our blood has iron, right? Don't forget that.
Yep.
Then certainly we would be living a very different life, if any life at all. But see, I don't think we're using enough magnetism. We can do, in my opinion. When I was a little child, even I thought about it. Why can't we use magnetism for transportation? And we do. There are now maglev trains and all that, right? But why can't it be used more?
More.
Right, in other areas. Yeah. Well, I mean, these days you've got magnetic drives for mixers. Like not mixers. What are they called? Like the food processors, right? Mm-hmm. They have magnetic belt drives. So it's actually there's nothing. You don't see anything. You've got
direct drive.
Direct drive, yeah. So there's no mechanical components.
Yes, that's right.
It's actually the magnet that drives your little chopping knife inside the glass, right? But there's nothing physically attached to it. I find that astounding, and I think there should be more of it. I mean, these days you see it more as kids' toys. These globes that float in the air, seemingly that spinning. Magnetic pen holders where the pen seems to be suspended in the air, which is, through the force of magnetism. Yeah, I think it's astounding to think of these magnetic fields and the Earth itself. In fact, without magnetism, we'd all be dead. We'd be cooked in the sun's radiation. We'd all be complete goners. It's a Van Allen belt and so forth that really saves us here. Anyway, tell us about the supercritical fluids.
Do you know what? That's a material created under certain circumstances of temperature and pressure. It suspends the dividing lines of physical properties as we know them. In short, supercritical fluid is a substance somewhere between liquid and gas. It's a mixture of both, and yet it is neither liquid nor gas. It occurs when any fluid gets heated above its critical temperature and pressure. Critical temperature is the point where a substance has been heated to such a degree that you cannot liquefy it at. Critical pressure is the pressure that's needed to turn it into a gas or a liquid at a high temperature. So by using those two as a combination, you're able to make a fluid-like gas substance that's highly liquid. Yeah? If you were to delve into the atmosphere of some planets like Jupiter or Neptune, you would be immersed in it. It's a super freaky version of all liquids. Or is it a gas? There's another thing as well where it's where you've got a metallic version of hydrogen, and you have a metallic version of, and just name the current gas, oxygen, where they're under so much pressure that they've turned into not a frozen solid, but because of the heat, they've turned metallic. It's extraordinary.
It is, right?
Yeah.
It is. And then, look, it's always, for me, it's interesting because as we move into other environments like space, and even the deep pressure environments under the ocean and so forth, I'm always curious what new materials we'll discover. Because I mean, the conditions in all of these environments in which we previously haven't lived are completely different from the environment we're used to. I mean, most of us are used to living near sea level. I mean, a little bit higher, but certainly not below sea level. Or well, actually, maybe the Dutch. But for the most part, we're living near sea level. And it's some of us in fairly high elevations as well, but not in space. But the materials that we will encounter, or the materials that we'll be able to create, in my opinion, are going to be quite astounding. So it's always amazing when we find these reports of UFOs, or what we believe may be space or dimensional, or even time travel craft, and they're describing all these materials that are really strange and very strong and very light, and sometimes even more exotic than that. Well, I expect that, obviously, right? Because whoever built that would have had access to environments quite different to the ones we inhabit. Right? They would have gone into space potentially, or deep into the Earth, or maybe even into other dimensions. Hey, where conditions are quite different. We
the
just
physics
don't
may
know.
be different entirely,
Right.
and that itself is proof that it's from somewhere else. Like if the iron doesn't match today's the iron we have, or the aluminium, or you name it, right? Whatever metal it is, if it contains a different set of isotopes, then it's not from here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we just don't know enough, right? And this is really the point here as well. But these are the things that we have developed. This the next one is interesting. It's called nitinol. Nitinol is a trade name for nickel titanium, nitinol, a metal alloy with some extremely unusual and equally important properties. Nitinol is often used in the medical industry, but it has other applications. The weird thing about this metal is that it's almost like the liquid metal featured in the movie Terminator 2: Judgment Day. We all remember that, right? In that it can always return to its original shape. Nitinol has super elasticity, or a memory for its original form. So if you make an object out of nitinol and then bend it completely out of whack, it'll automatically crawl and fall back into its original shape before your eyes. It's called pseudo-elasticity. These shape memory properties make it both fun and practical. Stents are a great application, as nitinol can bend within the human body when needed, has the durability of a metal, and can return to its original form every single time after the force which caused it to warp is released. Nitinol's bending, shape-shifting properties are activated by heat. At some temperatures, it will bend out of its original state. At others, it will return to its original state. This temperature difference can be controlled within 1 degree Celsius, or about 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. From algae that remembers the light shined upon it to nitinol, which always remembers its original shape and returns to it under the right conditions, materials with a memory are definitely fascinating and weird. And as we go forward, will become very, very important.
Completely. I actually had a piece of wire that was the memory metal.
Oh,
and
cool.
You could bend it into any kind of shape you wanted, and then all you had to do was heat it up, and it would go back to its original straightness. It was amazing. Gallium is another metal element with an atomic number of 31. And if you know your chart, if you can get all the way down to there in your memory, you're doing very well. I can only do 20 of them in my memory, which even more closely resembles the liquid metal from Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Gallium's particularly strange characteristic is the low temperature at which it liquefies, which is only a tad shy of 30 degrees Celsius, which is 86 Fahrenheit. That's colder than the human body. That's close to room temperature, though, in many places. 30 degrees, or Darwin, right? And none of Australia at this point. I'm just making a joke.
Sure.
This metallic element is bright, shiny, and silvery white in colour. When you handle gallium, there's no ambiguity that you are handling a liquid metal. As a liquid, this metal can be played with. It rolls and forms into various shapes in your hands. Gallium has many practical uses like LED lights, cabling, and pharmaceuticals. It's an extremely soft metal, even if it's in its solid state. In fact, it's so soft that you could slice into it with a knife without much resistance at all. If you made a solid sphere, a ball of gallium, and then you picked it up, it would melt in your hand. That's one fascinating metal. It looks sort of like, when it's liquid, it looks sort of like mercury.
Yeah,
but it isn't,
right.
And it's safe. If you touch mercury with your fingers, it's accumulative and it'll go straight through your skin, and it sits on the brain, and that's really bad for you. So, I still wouldn't do that with gallium anyway.
Don't use mercury to moisturize. It's not a good idea. What? Who said that? Hydrogel. Another fascinating group of substances are hydrogels, and they're not unlike supercritical fluids. However, instead of being suspended somewhere between a liquid and a gas, hydrogels are suspended somewhere between a liquid and a solid. That's right, solid smoke, right? That'd be something. In fact, what about solid light? A hydrogel, and in fact, I'll talk about that in a second. A hydrogel maintains its shape and doesn't flow around objects like a solid does, but it bends amazingly like a liquid with an extremely soft pliability. Gel-O is one famous hydrogel that we all know about. It's a fun snack for people around the world. Jell-O, jelly. But there are other types of hydrogels and other uses for them besides food. Due to the flexibility and durability, hydrogels are showing great promise in the world of science for biomaterials, which go on or in the human body. Their ability to completely liquefy, fill a space, and then solidify and still be flexible is mind-blowing. Hydrogel are a series of polymers that contain both chemical and physical properties which change their state from solid to liquid seamlessly. When heated, the polymer proteins dissipate and travel more freely. When cooled, the same proteins harden again, but not quite as drastically as when water hardens into ice. These proteins make hydrogel one of the most unusual feeling and visually entertaining substances.
My favorite, graphene aerogel. Graphene aerogel is the lightest material on Earth, and definitely the lightest solid material that we know of. It weighs just 0.16 milligrams per cubic centimeter, almost lighter than air. Its density is even lower than helium, although it's slightly higher than hydrogen, the lightest of all of the gases. Graphene aerogel is created by taking hydrogel and replacing the liquid contents with air, making the substance 99.98% air by volume. That's why it's so light. It's empty. There aren't a lot of the dense atoms of solid or liquid to weigh it down. As a result, graphene aerogel is the least dense of all known solid materials, and that's why I've typed into our chat between Mackie and I solid smoke. It's been identified as that, as it weighs as much. On top of being used today for many adhesives, coatings and fillers, graphene aerogel is also being developed as a lightweight material for 3D printing to produce precise results. The future of graphene aerogel shows much promise, and this substance is going to be a staple of the future for printing items like lightweight coffee cups or even jewelry.
Because it's graphene. Why not, right?
I know.
Think about that.
Graphene's the new thing.
100%. 100%. Dark matter. Dark matter, of course. Now, this is not new, but some of the information here might be for you. It's one of the most elusive substances in the currently known universe, and that makes it arguably one of the most fascinating. Dark matter, we believe, makes up about 27% of the physical universe. It cannot be detected by its luminosity luminosity, the refraction of light that we use to see and detect regular matter with our eyes and instruments. Instead, dark matter can only be detected by its gravitational pull. We know it's out there, but we can't see it. So we can only perceive its presence by its pull on other objects that we can see. Right? So we infer its existence. With its existence first hypothesized in the 1970s, dark matter set the stage to explain the mysterious movements of many objects being pulled in its gravitational field, like galaxies, which seem to miraculously escape the gravitational pull of the larger galaxy clusters to which they belong. Gravitational lensing occurs when a substance in space distorts the space fabric and bends light from behind it. Even though we can't see dark matter, this is how we know it exists. It bends the passing light rather than emitting or reflecting light. Yeah? So it changes the nature of the light, right? So it doesn't emit light and it doesn't reflect light. It changes the nature. It bends the light that it passes.
Yeah, that's right.
Correct. For a frame of reference, dark matter makes up about 27%, as we said, of the observable universe. But observable matter only comprises 5% of our universe. Okay, so again, dark matter makes up about 27% of the observable universe, okay? But observable matter only comprises 5% of the universe. About 68% of the universe is dark energy, and mysterious and very elusive energy. This means that about 5% of our universe can actually be seen and detected using observation of the actual substance itself. It can only be perceived by its effect on the tiny sliver of the universe we can see. This makes dark matter one of the strangest substances detected by modern science. I always thought this is funny meme around. Like there's Earth scientists, astronomers, sitting around the observatory saying, "Oh, we can't detect 95% of the universe. We're looking for it. We can't really see it." And then there's another picture of alien scientists. We wonder where the rest of the 5%. There's 5% of the universe you can't see. It's the missing 5%. And clearly, those were dark energy or dark matter beings that missing 5% of the universe. But what it also means is that we are a tiny portion of what is out there in this reality. We are 5%. We can detect 5%. So this is funny. Remember we talked about the spectrum of visible light, right? This is and then how it relates to the spectrum of all frequencies on that band. From microwaves to infrared and so forth. Yeah, we see only a tiny sliver in that. Only a tiny sliver. Imagine if we could see the entire spectrum of frequencies out there. Yeah, radio waves, everything. Right? We would have a full experience of the universe, but we can't. We cannot. We simply cannot see it. So we are truly like the one-eyed man, right, in the land of the blind. We're not blind. We're not blind by any means of the imagination, but we only see 5% of reality, and that 5% that we see is fraught with illusions. Okay, and optical illusions I'm talking about now, right? And our mind plays tricks on us with even that small percentage, right? So we don't see everything, and our mind chooses to focus on certain things and makes us not see other things completely, right? So if we don't expect something, if something is completely outside our experiential field, the likelihood is that we can't see it, we don't see it, because we haven't got a point of reference for it. Yeah, or our mind is distracted. Our mind doesn't see it because it's focusing on something else. It's like that old experiment, where people are passing a ball, like 4 or 5 people are passing a ball between, or 2 balls even, a green ball and a red ball. Follow the green ball. How many different people touch the green ball? So you focus on that. And there's a gorilla walking through the shot, the screen, right? There's a gorilla walking back and forth. Big man in a gorilla suit. Afterwards, you say, oh yeah, the green ball or the orange ball was passed 15 times. Do you see the gorilla? What gorilla? Right? And I did it. I did it. Right? I did it without knowing what the experiment was, and I did not see the gorilla.
Same.
I didn't. Right? Because my mind was focused on the ball. Everything else was noise. Completely blocked out. I mean, it was right in front of you. Right?
And the gorilla stops in the middle of the screen and waves to you, and then moves off screen slowly. Yep.
Yes. It's insane. And you know, this is actually pretty sorry. This is a completely random fact here I want to give you. If you're in a war zone, or you're in the heat of battle or whatever, you've got a much better chance of surviving if you simply walk at a good pace. Right? If you run or make quick movements, then chances are that you will be picked off by a sniper or some other thing. But if you're just walking at a regular pace, chances are that you survive much better because it's unexpected. Right? Unless
I've got one.
Very good. You go on.
If you've been accosted by someone who has a gun and they've pointed it at you, you will have a higher likelihood of describing the gun than the person.
Yes, that is right. Focus. All about focus, of which we have very little, by the way. And you know what else? Your peripheral vision, when it comes to motion, is a lot more accurate than your frontal vision. Okay? Your peripheral vision will not miss a beat, because that's where the predators came, right? If you're sitting around the campfire, the tiger's coming for you. It's not coming head on it. It's coming from the side, coming from behind you. And your peripheral vision is super, super sensitive, super acute. Always trust it. I see movement out of my peripheral vision, like it's caught off my eye all the time, and I'm always right. It could be like an insect or something, right? And you go, oh, I saw something, and you saw something. You don't know what it was, but you saw motion, right? And then you look and you see, oh, there it is, right? But you detected the motion without fully understanding what it is that you saw. There was definitely motion. So our visual complex is really a funny thing. I think we'd have shown this at some point in the past. It just doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't. The way our visual apparatus has evolved, well, has been put together, is completely mysterious. How this happened and what for, and what's the point of seeing anyway, right? And what's the point of only seeing a small spectrum of all frequencies? What's the point, right? Good question. I mean, there are creatures that don't see very well at all, but they can hear, and they can smell, and they can sense vibrations and things like that much better than we can, and they probably get along better than we do. Okay.
And then there's insects that can see ultraviolet. And there's elephants that can hear sub-audible sounds to us from the human condition, from our measurement stick, right? It's obvious to them, but we can't hear it.
No. In fact, if you're over the age of 30, I think it's 30, there are certain sounds that your teenage children can hear, but you can't, right? There was like this gag that went around, I think, where the ringtones would be set to the frequency that could be heard by them, but not by adults. So that's all a fact, right? So our perception, our perception machinery, all of it is extremely limited. We think we all hear, see everything. You don't hear and see. You don't. What you hear and see is a fraction of what's out there. Some of it is through filters, because if there was too much, you simply couldn't cope. I mean, there's stuff coming into us all the time, right? All kinds of visual, auditory stimuli, and we simply ignore them. It's just noise, right? Because we need to focus on the important things at hand. If we'd be overwhelmed otherwise. I believe, and I said this before, and I've heard it from a person that has recovered from autism, that autistic people have no filters. Autistic people take all information in all the time. There are no filters. Imagine that. Imagine if you processed or try to process all the information all the time. You have no filter that pre-selects what you see. You see and hear everything. It's too much information. Exactly. That's 100% correct. So, look, I find it fascinating. Again, we don't have the capacity to deal with it, right? Should we? Yes, we should. And it goes back to my original argument around the hypothesis that we were put in this reality in a certain way, so that we can only focus in a certain way, that our thinking can't go beyond the box we're put into. And our physical and biological makeup is part of that. So we have two eyes facing front. Why? Did you know, Dave, I went to the aquarium with my children. Do you know that, how many brains do you think an octopus has?
Oh, is it 8 or something?
Exactly. Well, it's 9. It's 9. It's
9.
this one
I
in the
knew it
head.
was something
9,
like that. Yep.
Yeah, it's 9. And 8 in the tentacles and 1 in the head. So it moves amazingly fast and independently almost, right? The tentacles move independently of each other, right? And the other creatures that can see all around, right? Or they've got sensory perception that goes it's 360, right? And other creatures that move through the world up, down, left and right with no problems whatsoever, right? Flying or swimming creatures, right? And they're all much better adapted at reality, at this reality, than we are, right? I mean, we are forced to think in a linear fashion, or at best in a cyclical fashion, right? Right? That's it. It's very difficult for us to think in other terms, right? Our thinking is very much dictated by our biology, the way our physical bodies are made up. And there's no mistake. For me, there's no coincidence here, right? The way we are designed. I mean, if you look at us, it's extremely inefficient, right? It's okay to get around this reality, right? But it's also extremely well designed to keep us focused on this reality and not think outside the square, the box, whatever you want to call it, because we've got the limitations that we have, the physical limitations, that we experience from birth. Right? We are crippled from birth. Right? We have no way to go beyond it unless we are engaging in the metaphysical. Right? If we have out of body experiences, or if we engage in, like Dave has, chakra aligning, right? Or if you try to have some astral projection, unless you do any of these things, you are completely slaved to your body. You're a slave of your biology.
I'm gonna throw something else at you.
Please.
Our terrible ability to have to sleep to process memories.
Yeah.
We have to go offline.
Why?
Yeah. Surely that's a bad thing, and it actually enters a zone that I call risk. That you can't be on your own when you're doing this.
And we discussed this, right? We discussed sleep at length, and today scientists, have no good answers to why sleep is even a feature. I mean, they're creatures, giraffes. You know how long giraffes? Again, I went to the zoo with my kids. You learn a lot of things that you once knew but forgot, right? Giraffes sleep standing up, as we all know, because it's tough for them to get up. But they only have 15 minutes of REM sleep a day. 15 minutes of REM. But the thing is this: the hypothesis states that we need this sleep, REM sleep especially, for us to stay sane, to survive in this reality. If we didn't get this, because I believe that when we sleep, we actually are free to move around the multiverse as we would. So when you dream, everything makes sense. The multiverse is open to us. Not every dream, but I think most dreams. Right? Most dreams that we have, we go around, and while we're dreaming it makes perfect sense. When we wake up, most dreams make no sense at all, because we are limited yet again by our biology. But once we're dreaming, we've left this body behind, if you will, metaphorically speaking, and we're roaming the multiverse. We're not actually dreaming per se. We're experiencing the multiverse, right? So that's what I'm saying. Any dream, any fiction, any novel, any movie that you see is a reality somewhere in the multiverse. It's a reality somewhere in the multiverse. And we're free to roam when we sleep. If we didn't have this walk in the prison yard, I think we would die. And in fact, if we don't have REM sleep, we do die. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think our fundamental, our essence, our energy, whatever you want to call it, our car, soul, needs to exist, at least for a little bit every day in the multiverse. If it cannot, you will die. Right? That's what I think. That's the hypothesis. But yeah, look, we've got another couple of minutes left here. Next week we're going to dive right into it. We've given you the outline of the shows coming your way. We're gonna look at some of these really strange things, very strange things, like maybe coincidences. We'll examine a bit more closely. We'll look at the paranormal a lot more this year. Anything that doesn't quite sound right, I'm going to spend a lot of time on fairy tales, analyzing them in the modern light. And there's a few things I want you to consider here. once I go through them. Fairy tales from all around the world. Arabian Nights, Chinese fairy tales, Brothers Grimm, and so forth, right? But they're folk tales, not things that were made up by people, but stories that were handed down the generations by the people. That's what it's meant, right? And we're definitely going to look at the Tartar Empire, the Tatars, Tatarim. If you're European, then you know what I'm talking about. It's a stock knowledge that we have. I mean, I knew about the Tatars just as a matter of growing up. They're just one of the I guess Central Asian tribes that existed. You know, well, still exist to some extent. The blood is still there.
I have to say, one of the things that I learned about them was that there was a Freedom of Information document that suggested the rewriting of history to delete that portion of it.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So
I mean,
just what does that actually mean, and what happened, and what was the change, and how big were they, and was it the time? Was it how far did it go back? Was it pre-flood or post-flood? And what was its influence? Because it might have been nearly the world empire at the time, and it even looks like Napoleon and Russia fought against them.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of looks like at the moment. So, this year should be a great year for topics, and I'm looking forward to touching on every single one of these as we go through.
If I can ask a personal favor of everybody that's listening, and ask your friends to do the same thing, stop making stupid people famous, please. Stop making stupid.
You don't have an
famous.
Example to give us, do you, Mackie?
No, not at all. No. It's just what? No, seriously. The Kardashians? Yeah, okay. No, please. Let's all work together to not Facebook all this stuff anymore. Please. That's my look. That's all I'm asking. That's it. I got nothing else.
Remember, the Kardashian audience is the audience who will be voting to go to Mars. You know that when you get there, if you volunteer, that the people around you will be the Kardashian watching audience. There's a great conversation starter.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be like samurai swords and cyanide pills on the wall of the little spaceship that you take to get to Mars. Because
maybe, man.
You might have to do harikari or bite down on the pill, because I can't imagine that conversation's going to be terribly exciting. No. I remember the music should be starting any second, if it's already started. I'd just like to say thank you very much for tuning in and inviting us into your lives. We'll be here next week for show 359. Stay tuned for Jer Bear and his roundtable, which is coming up immediately after the show. Bumpers
to be like samurai swords and cyanide pills
hour.
On the wall of the
little music. Take care, everyone, and have a really good week.